When it comes to ghosts and hauntings, I'm a skeptic. I'm just going to come out and say that right up front. But I'll be honest with you. After watching today's video, there are probably a few places you'll end up crossing off your travel bucket list for good. There's a French chateau you won't want to enter. Also, a certain lake in Greece that you won't even want to dip a toe into. And there's a rock in Serbia that you couldn't pay some people to go near. Sure, this could all be nonsense. But would you volunteer to find out? I'm Mike with List 25, and today we're exploring 25 surprising places with terrifying urban legends. 25. New Zealand Parliament's corridors. New Zealand's Parliament buildings in Wellington have a reputation that most government officials probably wish would go away. For years, employees have been swapping stories about things they've seen and heard in those corridors after hours. Sounds echo through hallways when nobody's there. Objects end up in places nobody moved them to. And then there's William Larnock, a former MP who apparently didn't get the memo that his time in Parliament was over. People claim he's still wandering the premises long after his passing. The Parliamentary Library might be the weirdest spot in the whole building. It's been through fires and floods over the years, and staff say they still hear noises in there that nobody can account for. Some have reported phantom music coming from rooms that are completely empty, and others talk about seeing hands reaching out from behind old stacks of books. The building actually leans into its reputation now and offers after-hour ghost tours for anyone brave enough to walk those halls at night. 24. Alberton House, Auckland. Speaking of New Zealand, Auckland has its own creepy claim to fame. Alberton House is this stunning Victorian mansion that looks like it belongs on a postcard, but visitors and staff have been seeing things that definitely don't belong in any travel brochure. Multiple people have reported spotting a woman dressed in old-fashioned clothing walking through the estate's hallways, and she always seems to vanish before anyone can get a good look. Others describe strange reflections in mirrors, sudden cold gusts of air out of nowhere, and this persistent feeling of being watched while exploring the historic rooms. The estate's elaborate furnishings and long history only make the whole thing creepier. 23. Boggo Road Jail, Queensland. Queensland's Boggo Road Jail was the kind of prison that gave other prisons nightmares. The most dangerous criminals in the state ended up behind these walls, and not everyone made it back out. Several men were executed here over the years, and the building has never quite shaken that history. The cells have long been empty, but visitors say the place is anything but quiet. People talk about hearing strange laughter bouncing off the walls when no one else is around. Cell doors slam shut on their own. Whispering voices drift through the corridors with no clear source. The spirit of Ernest Austin, the last man to be put to death in Queensland, is said to make his presence known to guests, particularly women. The old jail now runs paranormal tours through its dark corridors and isolation cells for anyone who wants to test their nerves. 22. Lawang Sewu, Indonesia. Indonesia's Lawang Sewu, which translates to Thousand Doors, is one of those places that looks gorgeous during the day, but takes on a completely different vibe once the sun goes down. This Dutch colonial building in Semarang has a reputation that goes far beyond its stunning architecture. The basement has a dark history. During World War II, the Japanese occupation turned it into a detention facility, and what happened down there wasn't pretty. A lot of people went in and never came out. Locals will tell you those people never left the building either. They say the spirits are still wandering through the maze-like passageways, confused or angry, or maybe both. Visitors talk about walking through and suddenly hitting a pocket of freezing cold air for no reason. Others mention hearing whispers when nobody's around, or catching shadows moving in their peripheral vision. One story that gets passed around a lot involves a tourist who took a photo inside. When she looked at it later, there was a figure standing in the frame that nobody had noticed at the time. 21. Old Inunaki Tunnel, Japan. Japan has some seriously terrifying urban legends, and the old Inunaki Tunnel in Fukuoka Prefecture is right at the top of the list. The tunnel itself has been sealed off for years, but that hasn't stopped the stories from spreading. According to local folklore, there's an isolated village beyond the tunnel where Japanese law doesn't apply. Outsiders who find their way there either face violence or disappear completely. Nobody really knows if the village is real, but something did happen near that tunnel in 1988. A brutal crime took place there, and after that, the story started spreading even faster. People who have gone near the entrance say their phones stop working, their cameras glitch out, and some even claim they've heard growling sounds coming from deep inside, even though the tunnel is supposedly empty. Aside from that, there are talks about voices crying out from the darkness, and voices that don't sound entirely human. Whether the village exists is up for debate, but locals will tell you, don't go looking for answers. 20. Recoleta Cemetery, Argentina. Buenos Aires' Recoleta Cemetery is famous for its ornate mausoleums and famous residents, but the stories that come out of this place are anything but peaceful. The most chilling tale involves Rufina Cambaceres, a young heiress who was mistakenly declared gone in 1902. When workers later opened her coffin after hearing sounds from the grave, they discovered scratch marks on the inside. The poor girl had woken up and tried desperately to escape. According to locals, Rufina's spirit still wanders the necropolis at night, and she can often be felt near her family's crypt. The cemetery's dark passageways and endless rows of crypts have become a magnet for ghost tours, with visitors reporting unexplained noises and apparitions appearing between the tombs. 19. Humberstone and Noria, Chile. Chile's Atacama Desert is home to two abandoned mining towns that time forgot. Humberstone and Noria were once thriving communities built around the saltpeter industry. But when the economy collapsed in the mid-20th century, residents left in a hurry. The thing is, some people think they're still there. Go wandering through these ghost towns after sunset, and you might understand why. Visitors have reported dark shapes moving between buildings that should be empty. Some say they've heard footsteps trailing behind them on streets where they were definitely walking alone. And others talk about voices coming from inside structures that have been abandoned for over 50 years. La Noria Cemetery is the spot that freaks people out the most. The graves are open, and locals say the spirits of old mine workers climb out after dark. Over in Humberstone, the old schoolhouse has its own reputation. More than a few visitors have heard what sounds like kids running around and laughing inside. Every single time someone goes in to check, the place is completely empty. 18. Castillo Idiarte Borda, Uruguay. Uruguay's Castillo Idiarte Borda in Montevideo is one of these places that even serious paranormal investigators take seriously. This castle was once the magnificent home of a wealthy family, but its reputation has taken a much darker turn over the years. Staff and visitors have reported doors that open and close on their own, sounds and footsteps with no visible source, and shadows moving through rooms that should be completely empty. Some guards describe deeply unsettling experiences while working overnight shifts, and others claim to have captured ghostly images on camera. The castle has leaned into its spooky reputation and now hosts paranormal expos and supernatural events that draw thrill seekers from across South America. 17. Paranapiacaba, Brazil. There's a village in Brazil that looks like someone built a horror movie set and then forgot to tear it down. Paranapiacaba sits high up in the Sierra do Mar mountains near Sao Paulo, and the fog there is relentless. It rolls in so thick that you can barely see a few feet in front of you, and the whole place just feels wrong. Railway workers built this town back in the 1800s, and a lot of the original Victorian buildings are still standing. Barely. Most of them are crumbling now, half swallowed by the mist and the jungle creeping in around them. People who live there have stories. They talk about figures appearing in the fog and then vanishing before anyone can get a good look. They mention hearing voices when no one's around, or footsteps echoing down streets that should be empty. But the creepiest story by far involves a tour guide who was leading visitors through town. Someone noticed his name carved into an old gravestone. Shortly after, he disappeared and was never seen again. 16. Aramu Muru, Peru. Near Peru's Lake Titicaca, there is a strange stone doorway carved directly into a rock face that has become the center of some truly wild folklore. Known as the Aramu Muru, or the Gate of the Gods, the doorway looks like it was designed to be walked through, but leads absolutely nowhere. Local legend claims that an Inca priest fleeing from Spanish invaders inserted the sacred golden disc into the niche, which opened an otherworldly portal. The priest stepped through and was never seen again. Many believe this doorway is a sacred entrance to other realms or the spirit world. Modern visitors have reported experiencing strange sensations near the site, seeing unexplained lights, and feeling an energy that they struggle to describe. 15. La Garita del Diablo, Puerto Rico. Old San Juan has a sentry box that locals call La Garita del Diablo. That translates to the Devil's Sentry Box. And yeah, it earned that name. Centuries ago, a young Spanish soldier got assigned to stand guard at this remote lookout on the walls of Castillo San Cristobal. By morning, he was gone. No body, no signs of struggle, no explanation. Just an empty post and a mystery that's never been solved. People started talking. The stories got wilder over time. Some say the devil showed up that night and dragged the soldier straight into the sea below. Others think the ghosts of soldiers who fell in battle still wander that stretch of wall, and maybe one of them took the young guard with them. Visitors who go there today say the place has a strange energy to it. The temperature seems to drop out of nowhere. The waves hit the rocks below in rhythms that don't quite sound natural. And every now and then, someone comes back with a story about hearing whispers they couldn't explain. 14. The Haunted House of Baguanos, Cuba. Cuba has its own paranormal hotspot near Holguin that has become one of the most talked about locations on the island. The Haunted House of Baguanos is a mid-20th century chalet that sits along the road connecting Holguin to Mayari and Moa. After being abandoned for decades, rumors started spreading about strange noises coming from inside, objects moving on their own, and unexplainable creaking sounds that locals attribute to restless spirits. The stories have become so widespread that curious tourists and internet conspiracy groups regularly debate whether supernatural forces are at work. Current residents insist they've never experienced anything paranormal, but that hasn't stopped the legend from growing. 13. Loftus Hall, Ireland. Ireland is packed with spooky locations, but Loftus Hall has a legend that reads like something straight out of a Gothic novel. During a terrible storm in the 18th century, a mysterious stranger arrived at the hall seeking shelter and convinced the family to let him join their card game. As the night went on, a young girl dropped a card and bent down to pick it up. When she looked under the table, she saw that the stranger didn't have feet. He had cloven hooves. The stranger, believed by many to be the devil himself, vanished through the roof. The girl was so traumatized that she never recovered, and allegedly walked the house in agony until her passing. Visitors and ghost investigators now report unexplained noises, sudden temperature drops, and shadowy figures moving throughout the historic hallways. 12. Château de Brissac, France. France's Château de Brissac is sometimes called the Giant of the Loch because of its imposing size. But it's the story lurking inside that gets people talking. The castle is said to be home to La Dame Verte, or the Green Lady, and her legend is not a happy one. Charlotte de Breze was a noblewoman who met a violent end in the 15th century after being discovered with a lover. Those who claim to have seen her describe a towering, transparent green figure with hollow eyes that seem to stare at nothing. She moves silently through the hallways, and people who work at the chateau report sudden cold spots, quiet footsteps when no one's around, and an unmistakable presence lingering on the staircase long after the sun goes down. 11. La Salamanca, Argentina. Deep in Argentina's Santiago del Estero province lies something the locals have whispered about for generations. La Salamanca is described as an occult gathering spot that serves as an entrance to the underworld itself. The legend claims that only those who have been initiated can find this place, and once there, they'll witness bizarre lights, ugly laughter, and terrifying drum beats coming from seemingly nowhere. According to the stories, a demonic figure named Zupe runs the show. He's supposedly surrounded by sorcerers and cursed souls who meet up to perform rituals that you really don't want to know about. The whole thing sounds like something out of a nightmare, which is probably the point. Here's the part that keeps the legend alive. If you somehow find La Salamanca and then tell someone where it is, bad things happen. I'm talking curses, madness, or worse. Locals have been telling these stories for centuries. The tale started with indigenous beliefs and picked up a whole lot of extra fear once Spanish colonizers showed up with their own ideas about demons and the supernatural. 10. Sonian Forest, Belgium. During the day, the Sonian Forest near Brussels is a beautiful woodland, perfect for hiking and nature walks. At night, according to local mythology, it becomes something else entirely. Locals have a name for whatever lives there. They call it Deogen, which translates to the eyes. Nobody really knows what it is, but people who walk through the forest after dark say they've seen it. Or at least, they've seen something. Glowing eyes that watch from the shadows and seem to follow you no matter which direction you walk. That's not even the worst part. Some visitors talk about hearing laughter that comes out of nowhere. Others mention whispers that sound like they're right next to you, then behind you, then somewhere off in the trees. A few people have seen shapes moving between the trunks, but when they turn to look, nothing's there. 9. Valsdorpervlatke Dunes, Netherlands. The Valsdorpervlatke near the Haag looks peaceful enough during the day, but this tranquil dune landscape hides an incredibly dark past. This is where the Nazis brought resistance members to be executed during World War II. It was remote, it was hidden, and a lot of people lost their lives here. That kind of history doesn't just fade away. Once the war ended, the story started. People walking through at twilight heard what sounded like sad, distant whimpers. Others saw figures that appeared and vanished just as quickly. The legend that stuck is that the spirits of those who were executed still wander the sands, especially on foggy nights, going through their final moments over and over again. 8. Beelitz-Heilstätten, Germany. There's an abandoned hospital complex hidden in the forest south of Berlin, and it's about as creepy as it sounds. Beelitz-Heilstätten has been empty for years, but nobody bothered to clean it out. The paint is peeling, the windows are smashed, and medical equipment is still sitting exactly where staff left it. The place started as a tuberculosis hospital, and later treated wounded soldiers. A lot of people suffered here, and a lot of people didn't make it out. People who've snuck in come back with wild stories. Visitors to the hospital hear phantom screams and footsteps. They also report seeing shadows and equipment move on their own. 7. Dragsholm Castle, Denmark. Denmark's Dragsholm Castle is one of the oldest in the country, and locals believe it's also one of the most active when it comes to supernatural activity. The most terrifying legend involves the White Lady, a noblewoman who became pregnant outside of marriage in the 16th century. Her punishment was beyond cruel. She was allegedly bricked alive inside the castle tower and left there to perish in complete darkness. People who visit or work at the castle say strange things keep happening there all the time. Knocking sounds come from rooms that have been sealed for centuries. The temperature will suddenly plunge for no reason. And every now and then, someone spots a pale woman drifting through the hallways after dark. The creepiest reports come from overnight guests. It states that a few of them have woken up to find the White Lady standing at the foot of their bed, just watching. She never makes a sound. She just stares for a moment, and then she's gone. 6. Pluckley Village, England. The village of Pluckley in Kent holds a Guinness World Record that most towns probably wouldn't want. It's officially recognized as the most haunted village in England, with at least a dozen different spirits said to roam its streets. The village has seen more than its share of tragedy over the centuries, and some believe that's exactly why the ghosts stick around. The legends include the Lady of Rose Court, the Highwayman of Fright Corner, and the Screaming Man of the Brickworks, among others. Locals and visitors alike report disembodied screams echoing through the night, shadow figures lurking around historic buildings, and sudden cold sensations that come out of nowhere. Many of the stories trace back to violent events from the 18th and 19th centuries. Pluckley looks like a charming English village on the surface, but its reputation has made it a destination for paranormal investigators from around the world. 5. Burg Kreuzenstein, Austria. This hilltop castle near Vienna looks like something out of a storybook. Pretty towers, dramatic walls, the whole fairy tale package. But the stories people tell about it are anything but magical. According to local legend, alchemists used to work in the secret chambers hidden beneath the castle. They were trying to figure out how to live forever, and they weren't picky about their methods. Human remains were supposedly involved. Whatever they did down there, people say it left something behind that never went away. Guests and staff report seeing dark moving shapes and hearing unexplained footsteps. The castle also features strange phenomena like dead silence in some rooms and electronic devices malfunctioning. 4. Auschwitz-Birkenau, Poland. Auschwitz-Birkenau is primarily known as the site where over 1 million people lost their lives during the Holocaust. But night watchmen and locals have shared their own unsettling experiences over the years. Security guards describe the feeling of being watched after sunset, shadowy figures appearing near the remains of the gas chambers, and disembodied whispers that seem to come from nowhere. Some have reported sudden cold patches in the preserved barracks, and the sound of footsteps crunching on gravel when nobody else is around. These stories aren't meant to sensationalize. They serve as somber reminders of the immense suffering that occurred in this place, adding an extra layer of weight to an already heartbreaking sight. 3. Lake Vouliagmeni, Greece. About 15 miles south of Athens, there's a lake that looks like paradise, but has a reputation for swallowing people whole. Lake Vouliagmeni sits in a collapsed cavern surrounded by cliffs, and its warm turquoise waters draw swimmers and sunbathers year-round. What most visitors don't realize is that the lake connects to one of the largest underwater cave systems in Europe. The tunnels stretch for miles beneath the mountain, and scientists still haven't found where they end. Strong currents near the cave openings have been known to create vortices that pull divers off course, and over the years, several have gone in and never come back out. Locals have their own explanation. They say the lake is home to nymphs who lure swimmers into the depths, just like the spirits in ancient Greek mythology. Whether you believe the science or the legends, the result is the same. The caves have been closed to the public since 1995, and only researchers with special permits are allowed anywhere near them. 2. Javolja Varoš, Serbia. Serbia's Javolja Varoš, which translates to Devil's Town, is a geological wonder featuring more than 200 stone pillars topped with rocky caps. The scientific explanation involves millions of years of erosion, but local folklore paints a much darker picture. According to legend, these formations are the petrified remains of a wedding party that was cursed. The story goes that the devil poisoned a spring to make a brother and sister forget they were related so they would try to marry each other. Before the ceremony could be completed, God intervened and turned the entire wedding party to stone as punishment. Visitors say the area feels unnaturally quiet, and strange echoes can be heard at dusk. The pillar's bizarre appearance makes the legend easy to believe. 1. The Basilica Cistern, Turkey. We've made it to number 1, and I've saved the creepiest location for last. There's an underground world hiding beneath Istanbul's streets. The Basilica Cistern is this massive reservoir held up by 336 marble columns, and walking through it feels like entering somewhere you're not supposed to be. It's dark down there. Water drips constantly. Reflections play tricks on your eyes. The whole place would be unsettling even without the stories. Locals claim the cistern is home to the spirits of workers who died during construction. Guests often experience unexplained coldness and hear whispered voices echoing through the columns. But the Medusa head columns near the back are where things get really weird. People have looked into the water and seen faces staring back at them. Faces that disappear the second you try to take a closer look. And there you have it. 25 places around the world where the legends are almost as unsettling as the locations themselves. If you enjoyed this trip around the globe, click here to check out our video on 25 eerie urban legends from around the world. And that's it for today. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, hit that bell so you never miss out on any of our content, and I'll see you in the next one.